Today we bring to you Dr. Suzie Kardong-Edgren, who is the Associate Professor at Massachusetts General Hospital Institute of Health Professions Education. So it's MGH-IHP. It's easier to remember that way. She has a long background in nursing as well as simulation. And I think you're going to be really interested in this topic. I've seen the presentation, and there's a lot of things that I am going to learn right along with you. So she's going to talk about different ways of sharing scholarship and research than what we're used to. So I'm going to turn it over to Suzie.
So today I want to talk about dissemination of your work. And having just toured 3 of the 4 floors here at Itqan, I have to say, one of the most beautiful simulation centers I've ever seen in the world, and I've seen a lot of them. And you have so much to offer that perhaps you've not thought about offering here, probably in your hospital also. So I look forward to talking with you and sharing things that I find very interesting, which is why I'm going to have a great time doing this talk. And so I have no disclosures, I have no conflicts of interest to deal with this presentation. And my objectives are to really talk with you about things that you might not be aware of even if you've published. How many people here have published articles? Raise your hand. Okay, how many of you have heard impact factor, impact factor, impact factor? Okay, I'm going to tell you, no, I don't believe in impact factor. What you care about is your H index. I'm going to talk about predatory journals and conferences. There are predatory conferences also. And we're going to consider other kinds of social media and ways that you can advertise your scholarly work and drive up the use of your scholarly work by other people. So I'm looking forward to talking about that with you. And the first thing I want you to know is that it doesn't matter who you know. It matters who knows you. For example, I knew that Dr. Kim had been here for a number of years and that Itqan really did not have a presence on social media. And so a year and a half ago, suddenly Itqan started appearing on LinkedIn. And they always had really great advertisements about the things that you were doing. And this is how a lot of people in the simulation world, in the medical world, in the nursing world find each other and share their information. So it was great to see Itqan appear there and be able to then repost and share this information about the wonderful things that are happening here in Qatar. So I want to really emphasize, it doesn't matter who you know, it matters who knows you. So very important. So this talk is for all you researchers, all those of you who are really creative but think, I must publish to get my work out there. I'm going to tell you, no, you don't. And writers, if you write, that's lovely, but it's not the only way to get information out there today. So first, let me talk about the impact factor and what the H index is. How many people here know what the H index is? Just a few. So it's going to be worth the price of admission just to hear this today. So this is a good thing. So the impact factor was really invented to help librarians figure out which of the journals they most wanted to buy to put into their libraries. That's really what it was invented for. It was never meant to become what it has become in the 20th century. And it was really there to give you a metric for tenure, because a lot of times we're told, I know more in the medical world than in the nursing world, submit your article first to the most prestigious impact factor journals out there, get rejected early, and then go for where you really wanted to go. And I would say that those high impact factor journals oftentimes get 500 manuscripts a week. That's a lot of stuff. And so they do a lot of, they're called desk rejects. They reject out of hand right off the bat. It's got to be something that's really well done, really different, really interesting for a lot of those high impact factor journals that are still living on those laurels. The interesting thing about a high impact factor journal is that you might have an article in it that is never read by anybody or cited by anybody. And so it was in the high impact factor journal. This means an editor thought, okay, that's interesting. But is your work useful to anybody? The H index counteracts that, and really you get cited for your use of your work and how it is used by others and cited and recirculated in the literature to be of use to others. So again, impact factor is used as a perceived value of the journal, but what is more important is the H-index. Now let me talk a little bit about that. It looks at you as an author, not the journal itself. So if you publish one article and one person cites it one time, your impact or your H-index is already 1. If you publish one journal and your article is cited 5 times, I think that drives it up to 5. So this is an interesting thing about that. And that H-index really shows the use of what you've done for your peers that are also working in your area. Does that make sense? I see heads nodding. So your H-index can only go up. It never goes down because once you've been cited once, you've got at least a 1. And so the question then becomes, well, what if I keep citing myself in all my future papers? And I will say that it doesn't work that way. You can't self-cite and drive up your numbers. So that's important to know. So who knows their H-index? Of those people, does anybody in here know their H-index? Okay, 1, 2, so there we go. I see maybe 3, 4. Good, so there are 4 ways to find your index, your H-index. And one of them is through the Web of Science. A lot of universities will buy that for their faculty. I have never worked at a place that did that. So I still know my H-index. You can find out your H-index by looking on Google Scholar, and it's free there. And on Scopus, it's free there. And on ResearchGate. If you haven't put your things up on ResearchGate, I highly encourage you to do that. It's very useful. You can put up your publications and keep them where you only release them after the time that you have to keep them hidden is over. You can share them independently if you want. If somebody writes and asks you to share your scholarly work, you can send an individual copy of your article out to them. But take a look at ResearchGate and then read about how you are allowed to share your information there. To find your H-index on Google Scholar, these are the instructions for how to do that. So let me see if this is what I think. So you see up there in the left corner on this, my profile. You would go there and you will fill out your profile sheet. Google then starts trolling and finding all of the citations of your work. And it notifies you every time somebody else uses your work. So you would go here, you type in your name then. So I type in my name, and it appears right there. And this is what I get for me. I went ahead and put my picture in there, much more true to life than it used to be. And the different articles that I have published that it has found. It shows the number of times it's been cited and the year that it was cited, or the year that it came out. What is not year it came out? That's not, I don't think that's it. It doesn't matter. Anyway, very interesting. You can see these things, and it keeps track of all of this for you. And then it shows that over years, how many times you've been cited. And the important thing here is that my total cites are 4,733 on this particular index. If you look at ResearchGate for me, it may be a slightly different number, and I think we'll see that in a few minutes when we look at another way to look at this. But it's going to be in that range. They're pretty close, about within 5 points of each other. But this is how I'm cited on Google Scholar. The H-index is, in this case, 33. The 10-year index is 52. 10-year index is a way to see, did I get tenure someplace and then did I just quit everything? The H-index, 10-year index is, have I been continuing to be scholarly? Have I produced articles? Do I have more citations going? And that is a high number. 52, so that shows that yes, I continued working. Part of that is because I met Dr. Kim, so just saying. On Scopus, this is what I end up looking like. And here you see the numbers a little bit different. Here it's 27. So it's close enough, but it gives you an idea of the scholarly productivity of somebody and the number of citations that they've had over time. The 5-year H-index tells you the number of citations for articles published and cited in the last 5 years. So there's an H index, a 5-year H index, there's an M, and the bibliometric groups of the libraries are always inventing new ways of scholarly measurement. So although these are common right now, there will be many more in the future, and there are some that I haven't talked about, and you don't need any more than this. A lot of times now for tenure and promotion in the United States, people will ask you what your H index is. They will not ask you what impact factor journals are you publishing in. That is a 20th century idea. The H index is a 21st century idea. So it's important to know yours and to keep track of that and take care of it. So the M index, another one, is the H index. This gets complicated. This is like math. I don't like math. Divided by the years since first publication, adjust for the length of your career and the number of articles published and cited. So M index shows, again, your scholarly productivity over a long period of time. And the longer you continue to work and publish, the higher that M index goes. So this would be important if you were thinking about changing jobs and people think, is she going to get here and then just kind of retire and quit on me? Is she just going to kind of hang out and not do anything? High index in M index means that you're working hard. So what is a good H index? How do you know if you're really great? And I will say it depends on how long you've been around, and I've been around a long time, but I didn't start publishing until about 12 or 13 years ago. I'd been a nurse in the hospital for a number of years, and I went to school later in life, and then I started publishing. So for me, that's one of the things that you have to think about. You cannot compare it across disciplines. I would not compare the H index of a psychologist to a nurse. I would not compare a nurse to a physician because you have different articles that you publish, different journals that you publish in, et cetera, different ways of progressing in your careers. So also, if you are in a research-intensive university, the expectations may be higher. You may be expected to get a higher index than other places might have. Also, if you're on tenure or non-tenure track, and I don't think you have tenure a lot in the Middle East, so I wouldn't worry about that. And which of 3 databases you use to calculate? Again, if you use any of the 4, Web of Science, Scopus, ResearchGate, any of those, they're going to be within 5 points of each other, but they will be different. So the question then becomes, which one do you want to choose to use? And I think that most people are using Google Scholar because it's easy to do and get a hold of, and it's free. So if you're wondering, well, what is a good H index? I thought I would show you. You can type in and say, who's got the highest H index? And as we see here, if you know who Sigmund Freud is, from the University of Vienna, and I think he is since deceased, he is 272. So that's a good H index, that's a high one. And we see Ronald Kessler used to be head of the CDC or one of the big US physician organizations. So he's high up there. And you see that a lot of the Harvard and Brigham and Women's hospitals tend to have high H index people. So again, whenever I start thinking I'm really hot stuff, I'm really great, I see this and I go, oh, I'm not as high as Sigmund Freud, so I'm not that good yet. I have to keep working. So in medicine, you may be wondering who has the highest H indexes. And I will say that general surgeons and internal medicine people have the highest H indexes. And you see that it's usually the chairpersons, because a lot of times in those disciplines, the chair of the department gets to put their name on the article as the last author, the senior author. I see the thumbs, yes. So yes, that does happen. So that helps them. However, who are the lowest H index people? And those tend to be otolaryngologists, I can hardly say it, because they have fewer journals to publish in, and fewer pubs overall, and limited audience. How many otolaryngologists are there on the planet? Not that many. So they tend to have lower overall H indexes. And it can be used for medical academic productivity as one measure among many. And this little thing right down here at the bottom, SVITR, is the citation I took this from. I have this on my reference slide at the end if you all care to look this up, and Dr. Kim will share the slides with you. Absolutely fine with me. In nursing, you may be wondering, what is a good H-index for a nurse? And if you're an assistant professor, 2 or 3 is considered good. From a friend of ours, Dr. Marilyn Orman, has done research in this area. If you're an associate professor, 7 to 8 is a good H-index. And if you're full professor, 10 to 11. So that gives you an idea of where you might want to be thinking about hitting and what bar you might be going for. In the simulation world, which is the world I live in, which is really interprofessional, I work with physicians, I work with nurses, I work with a lot of different people. David Cook just ran a research 2-day conference before the international meeting for the Society of Simulation in Healthcare. He writes a lot of scoping reviews and systematic reviews of literature, which are always highly cited articles. If you want to drive up your H-index, do reviews of literature because everybody reads them and cites them. So this is a good thing. And so this is old, this is several years old, so he was 60 then, he's going to be higher today, absolutely. David Gaba, who's basically the founder of simulation in the United States, he did not publish a whole lot, and these abbreviations are, that is Google Scholar, this is Web of Science, this is Scopus, so that you know what these are. Demetrius Stefanidis was in charge of the conference, or the research conference we just had at the MSH, and his review number is 33. And Walter Epic perhaps has been here, maybe talk with you all. He was 20 a few years ago. He just finished his doctorate and is publishing more now. So he is a pediatric emergency room physician. So this just gives you an idea. And here's Dr. Kim down here, Scopus, she's 14. So she's been busy. She did a book in the meantime too, so she's been busy. How many of you know what Jane is? This is another super secret tip I'm giving you. This is really special. Jane stands for Journal Author Name Estimator. It is a great place when you're writing a manuscript and you're wondering, where should I send this? What journal would probably take this? What you do is, this is what the website looks like. What you do is you write your abstract, and you take your abstract and you put it into this block right here. You literally cut and paste it into the block. And it will then tell you all the journals that look like what your abstract looks like. And it gives you the rankings. I would probably try here first, second, third, fourth, fifth. You can also use this very much like Google Scholar to do reference searches and such. You can find journals down here at the bottom. You can find other authors of articles. You can also use this as a search engine to find articles that are similar to what you have written. So all you have to do is put in your keywords or your abstract right in here, and it will do all of these things for you. This is free. It's available on the internet. It is a wonderful find. Notice here that this talks about beware of predatory journals. And we're going to talk a little bit about this here today too. So again, I talked about find journals. I also said beware of predatory journals. And so what is a predatory journal? This is a nice definition. They are journals and publishers, and I'm going to say predatory conferences also exist that prioritize their self-interest at the expense of your scholarship, and they are characterized by false or misleading information, deviations from best editorial practices, and publication and lack of transparency. Sometimes you think, they want my article, this is the greatest thing, I'm so honored that they've asked me for my article. You submit it because you think they've asked you for it, and then they say, well, yeah, we'd love to publish this, we'll get this turned around in like 10 days, and we'll publish it for you, and pay us, a lot of times it's like $2,000. Then you say, oh, I don't want to do that, you never mentioned that this was going to cost any money, and they say, well, it's going to cost you $2,500 for us to send the manuscript back to you. So sometimes they hold your manuscript hostage. So you do not want to get involved with predatory journals. And this is how an article that I will be citing here frames these. This is like the wolf in sheep's clothing, which is a vernacular that we use in the United States. This is the wolf. It looks very nice like a sheep, but it's not. It's a wolf. So a friend of ours got this wonderful opportunity to publish in this journal called the American Journal of Educational Research. It sounds legitimate, but as she looked at the call for papers for it, she started noticing things. And she said, first of all, why are you sending this to me at my Gmail address and not at my address at work, which is my university address? Why did you send this to me at home? Then she said, you have all these different things up here. This does not look like a professional email address from an Outlook address or cbookhove@gmail.com. She said, this doesn't look correct. This does not look right. And so what a lot of predatory journals do is they try to have a name very similar to a journal that you probably know the name of. And you might think, oh, this is a legitimate journal. They're asking me for the publication. Sometimes this is true, sometimes it is not true. So in this case, we would avoid this journal. And this is somebody who really went to town, gave them a talking to on the email that she sent back to them and said, you are a predatory journal and I will not be publishing with you. Another thing that you might see is that you'll get emails like this. I am writing to introduce myself, name of journal, which is launching a new journal called X, which you've never heard of. A lot of times it will come from a low or middle income country. Sometimes they now know that everybody knows that that might be not a legitimate journal, so they try to get a US or a UK email address. They will say wonderful things to you. We greatly acknowledge your research and contributions to the field of, I have one I will show you in a minute. They try to flatter you. They want you to feel so special. And I have to tell you, I have friends that have fallen for this. And then they have come to me afterwards and said, I published in this journal, and then they wanted money for me to pull my article out. I had to go and pay them the money. So some of these things are very, very, very expensive, so it sometimes turns out very badly. The other thing that can happen if you publish in a predatory journal is that other people looking at your CV see that you've published in one. They may think, oh, that's not so bright. And so if it was me, I would probably take that citation off. I would probably not advertise that I had been cheated by somebody like this. This came to me right before I came here, so I wanted to show you. This is another way that it would look. It would say, dear, good day, Dr. Suzie Kardong-Edgren. I'm like, oh, hello. And it says, we have heard about your skills and expertise in the field of, except that they didn't tell me what the paper was. And if this is spelled incorrectly, everything that I had on the other slide, this is the way it is. And this came to me just the other day. So I said, no, I won't be publishing with you, and I won't be at your conference, et cetera, et cetera. So how many of you have received these things? See, here we are. We're all too smart for that. I just got something from a conference that looked pretty legitimate. And I wrote to one of my friends in Australia and said, do you think this is legit or not? Because I was really concerned that I had friends that were getting the same one. And she said, I actually went in and I really researched this. And what I saw was, when you see words like the conference would cover, it tells you that no, they don't know what they're going to cover yet. You are going to be the conference. And then she said, Michelle Kelly, one of our friends from Australia, who's a big researcher in simulation, was listed as a speaker. Well, my friends in Australia, she said, I contacted Michelle and asked her if she's speaking at this conference. She said, I've never heard of it. So they were using Dr. Michelle Kelly's name to draw people to the conference that she did not know that she was being used in this way and she wasn't speaking at that conference. So this kind of thing is happening a lot. You want to be very careful of this. My friend said, this is what I found at the bottom of the sheet. is that this what it said, the conference would cover all the major areas related to nursing. Nursing doesn't usually cover everything unless you're going to like the ICN conference or something like that. This would be unusual. So it says it's going to cover all these kinds of topics. That's a really interesting conference. And the way that they do this is that when they get enough people that have volunteered to be in the conference, they then say, this is the time, this is the place. When you go, you are the people putting on the conference. You are the audience. Each of you will get up and take a turn speaking. And a lot of times they're running one for medicine, right next to one for nursing, right next to one for whatever. So they're very clever. They know how to pack a room, but you are the conference. And so, again, not a good thing to be going to because it doesn't have the scientific rigor that we're looking for in conferences. So important to know that this can happen. Because there are more and more predatory journals and conferences being invented all the time, the man who first really published about this was a librarian named Beale. He was from Denver, Colorado. He was sued by a bunch of the predatory journals for his list of predatory journals, and so he had to stop publishing. But other people picked up the mantle and kept doing it, and so there are new lists of predatory journals all the time. So important, if you wonder about a journal, go ask somebody who's a mentor for you and say, I've heard of this journal, have you heard of this journal? Is this legitimate or not? Look them up online, see if they're on the list of predatory journals, because there are new journals that have come out. So we want to be careful about things like this. So we've talked about publishing, but in print journals, we've talked about those kinds of things, but there are many other things that you can do today. So what if you don't want to publish? What if you think, that's not my thing, I really don't want to do something like that? Social media is the new way to really get the word out about what you're doing. And so social media today is defined as internet-based, disentrained, and I want to say, when I read the word disentrained, I said, I don't know what that means. So I went and looked it up, and I said, I still don't know what it means. So we're going to pretend like that word isn't there, because it really doesn't help us. So social media is defined as internet-based and persistent channels of mass personal communication that allow you to share all kinds of things with everybody. So it is the way to go today on so many levels, I'm just going to tell you. Once you start posting things on social media and you put your articles up on there or your citations for your articles or you chat about them on LinkedIn or all these different kinds of things, you will see when you go into certain databases like Scopus and you pull your article up, you have these donut things. This is the donut. And the donut tells you all the different ways that your paper has been cited or your social media post has been shared and all these different kinds of platforms. So the donuts get bigger and bigger based on how many times it's been cited or retweeted or reposted in other kinds of social media. And so the little color code here tells you about all the different kinds of social media that whatever it is you've put up on social media has been moved to other places for other people to see. So this is really interesting data and really fun for so many reasons. And so we see that something that is really highly cited is huge. And so sometimes news releases get picked up. Itqan, I'm sure, as it went up on social media, is appearing, and donuts are going to form around things that you guys have done. So Kim and I, during COVID, did an article called Sidelined during COVID. And as we look at our citation here, we see that we had, although we did not know what was happening, we had 23 altmetric things that had happened. We said, oh, what does that mean? So we started looking. And you can pull up this metrics thing here. And when you pull up your particular donut, you'll see things like this. This tells us that we had 33 tweeters who talked about our article. We had one citation on Mendeley where somebody was interested there and then talked about it. It shows you the map of where the citations are coming from around the planet. So it was mostly in Greenland, or actually, that's not even Alaska. It is like the far north of Canada and then United States. So very interesting what you can see. When you drill into who is citing you and you punch into this to see, you can see who cited you, you can see their citations and what they said about the paper. So she really liked this paper. Professor Lucy Easthope liked this. Dr. Beck Sabo liked it. Let's see. She's saying that she really liked this article. They're citing our first lines here, and they're putting up the citation here so that other people can find it. So we saw that there were, including 32 additional tweets from going ahead and putting this paper up, and that we could, kinds of things that we can see when we do this, and you drill down. If you just have an afternoon where you're not doing much, just start looking at what you've done and start clicking. You just get lost in the path of all the things you can see. Then I found this journal called the Journal of Medical Internet Research. It is awesome. It is open access. All these journals, articles are downloadable for free. Look, they cite all the tweetations here, and you see that this has been tweeted out 231 times. And what they really talked about in some of these articles that I read, and this is just an example of one, and you see here the traditional model of promotion and tenure in health professions relies heavily on formal scholarship through teaching, research, and service. However, you can now start having your own extra citation thing in your CVs talking about how many times you've been cited on different kinds of social media. And so they have a nice graph that they put into this particular article to say, I've been tweeted this many times, on LinkedIn I've shown up this many times, this article has shown up in all these different places, so that you can track basically the 21st century way of citing your work. So very, very interesting. There's been more research that shows when you just put up your citation of your work, it gets moved around, you get cited, but the smarter thing to do is to put up the key points, bullet points of what you found, of what your population was, what your outcomes were, and then your DOI number for your citation so that people can click into that. That drives more people to your article than just the citation. And a lot of times when you publish with people, you get 50 free reprints, or it's free for a month. Anybody who uses it can download, or uses the DOI number can download your article. They're trying to drive your numbers up for you and for them. But if you also put some information about what you actually found and who your population was you studied in the article, you're going to get more citations. So there's a science to this, and you want to think about it. If you can make a very nice PowerPoint slide with key points on it and put that up into social media, that will drive more people to your site. Now, I bet you're wondering, sure, of course I could do that. Do you have an article or something right now that you would like to drive more people to? It's been sitting out there, you think it was awesome, but I didn't get enough sites. I want more people to read this. This is really important work. You can do that now. Make a plan, make your slide, and another tool to use for this is Canva, C-A-N-V-A. It's free. You can also buy the more expensive version, but you can do everything that you need to be able to do for what I'm going to tell you for free right now on Canva. And what you do is you make a very nice little advertisement. It's called a tile for social media, and they have them for Instagram, they have them for LinkedIn. Just pick what you want. Make a nice little summary, key points of what you want to share, and then you put it up every 2 weeks on your LinkedIn page. And it starts driving people to your site, because you don't know how often your friends are on LinkedIn. Some of us are on it every day. Some of us are on it once a week. Some of us are on it only when we see that people are sending us things. but you can start driving people to your social media and your things that you have published by doing this kind of thing. And I have some more examples of this, which I'll talk about in a minute. This is plum metrics. This is another kind of the donut. This is another company's use of the equivalent of the donut. This is how Plum Metrics, this little company, does this. So they're saying our article in this case has 11 Twitter interactions. It has received 5 tweets and 6 retweets. Again, they show you exactly the same kind of information. And here's where I talked about my own article, our own article. And I said, presenting this research at IMSH 2022, sidelined during COVID, and I put the date and time I was speaking about it so that people would know if they were coming to that conference, where it was going to happen and how they could find it. So this is just another example of another kind of thing, and the arms on this plum thing change based on who is citing this. And so we got the most sites on Twitter, that's why this one's so big. If it was on Instagram, we know one of these would be big. If it was on some of the other things, those would be big. So this is another way of seeing how social media is picking up and working with the things that you have put up. And you wonder, well, why would I want to put things up on LinkedIn and Twitter? The reason you want to do that is that people can find your work. You reach so many people. Twitter in 2019 had 290 million users. Today it has 368 million users worldwide. So it's an amazing tool. How many of you are on Twitter? See, about a third of the room. I would say it's worth it. How many of you are on LinkedIn? In the simulation community, I want to say I think I see more people in my head, because I use it more. I think I see more people on LinkedIn in the sim world. But anyway, very interesting thing to be able to do. The thing I was talking about with tweeting and retweeting every 2 weeks, when you don't tweet, this is how these people, they did a research study of 3 different groups looking at how they put their papers up. When they just cited it and they put it up on LinkedIn with the citation, this is all they got. Once they started tweeting about it and they put up their tiles and started showing it off beautifully, it drove up the citation index for each of these different articles. So this is scientific. This is not Suzie saying this is a really good idea. There's actually research that shows that this makes a difference. So I highly encourage you to just give it a try. Pick one article that you think didn't get the amount of use that it should have gotten and try this and see what happens. There's more and more publication about this kind of thing, thinking about social media and academics as a 21st century tool. We have a friend, and I just brought this article and talked about it with Dr. Kim, that they needed to get a sample size of several thousand people. And they were doing the traditional thing, sending it out to different schools and universities, trying to get nurse practitioners to respond to some kind of questionnaire. It was funded research. They struggled and struggled and struggled. They could only get a couple thousand. Well, they needed a sample size of several thousand. And they said, okay, but this is not working. Let's try social media. Once they put it out on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and started asking people to share this with their friends and send it to other nurse practitioners, to get the number of people that they needed to answer this questionnaire, they almost achieved their very gigantic sample size. If they had only used the traditional methods, it would have been very difficult. They never would have reached it. Then they wrote up the article and they tried to get it published. And they had to go to 6 different journals before somebody finally said, we will publish this. What they heard from the 5 other journals was, this is not the way research is done. You do not publish, you do not go out on social media to try to find your sample size. Well, both Dr. Kim and I and our other friends in research here found that that was the only way we would be able to get the sample size that we needed for the research that we wanted to do. So I'm going to tell you that when you're told No, we just don't do that. That's not scientific. I'm going to say that's a 20th century thinking. This is the 21st century, and we need to be thinking about new ways of doing things. So I highly recommend that you consider doing things like this as we move forward in time. Oh, I think I have this up here twice. Huh. Well, the interesting thing, again, tweetations, you can put this into your own CV and talk about these kinds of numbers. And there, again, one of the articles I shared with you has a very nice graph for how to do that. Another thing that you can do is, in simulation, students learn the most during the debriefing. This means our best effort should be directed towards developing good debriefing facilitation. Our new simulation center at Robert Morris University has cameras in the debriefing rooms so we can videotape every debriefing and play them back for facilitator development. Our Regional Research and Innovation in Simulation Education, or RISE Center Quality Improvement Plan, includes watching our own debriefing videos and scoring them with the Harvard Center for Medical Simulation debriefing tool known as the DASH. The video is also reviewed by our CHSE certified simulation faculty. As the leader of our simulation center, I decided to go one better. So I played my own debriefing video for my team at one of our monthly meetings and critiqued myself using the DASH tool. Then I invited my fellow debriefers to critique me and offer feedback. Using myself as a guinea pig helped the team to discover some tips and tricks for debriefing. The faculty liked it so much that now our whole team does this at our monthly simulation meetings. We all learn from each other and develop great new insights. For example, one faculty member said, "I didn't know I leaned up against the wall so much. I look like I don't care." We had been trying to get everyone to sit down with their students during debriefings anyway, so this was really helpful. Another one said, "I thought I was being really engaging, asking pointed questions, but it looks like I'm badgering the students." It can feel pretty vulnerable opening yourself up this way. You need to have a very nurturing and open staff culture. At RMU, these monthly debriefings are helping us to build that sense of mutual support. And by putting ourselves in the place of our students, we are learning how to be better teachers. So this is something I would recommend that you think about doing for your own work in your own simulation centers. It dawned on me as I was there at Robert Morris University that we do all kinds of great stuff here, but it's going to take a while to get the publications out. Why don't we just go ahead and make short little videos highlighting different people in our center to show what we're doing. It also gave each person a chance to be in the limelight. And in this particular case, showing my own video of debriefing, I got all kinds of speaking engagements from doing that video because everybody said, "Why would the leader of the Sim Center go ahead and debrief people?" I said, because if you're the leader, you would lead. I'm showing people it is okay to not be perfect, to show people what I know how to do, critique myself in front of others, and let them learn from me, and we would all learn from each other. This became normal for us. And we did an article on it. It's reused over and over again, this short little video. So again, you saw the production quality. It had the name of our center across the bottom. It's very brief, but you have all kinds of opportunities to advertise things that you do in your work with your teams, doing things like this to get the names and the words of Qatar out there. Just gonna say, very simple thing to do. My final thing to talk about are podcasts. This is such a simple thing to do, and you can do it in so many different ways now. I don't know if anybody else from Itqan has been interviewed by Deb. This is a gal who just came up with a great idea, and she does the Sim Cafe. She's wonderful. She's got a great speaking voice. I see heads nodding, they know her. And this was kind of podcast is a big thing in the US, but for simulation, there aren't that many of them. So this is a wonderful podcast, and at IMSH, they interviewed like 22 different people from all over the world. You're going to hear wonderful things, very brief, I think always less than 30 minutes. Very interesting, and you could do this. I don't know if there's a podcast running in the Middle East about, this case, simulation. I don't know that I've seen anything like that. Nope. Why can't Itqan be first? Just saying. At my school, we have this going, and again, I'm at MGH, Institute of Health Professions, but we have interviewed many of our doctoral students, and let's see, who else have we got here? We've got like 5 others that we're waiting to put up, but we advertise our doctoral students' work, smart things that we're doing where I work, and this is something that you can do from your place also. So again, nothing new about podcasts, but I think the Middle East is waiting for something like this. I think you could be first. And I will stop there, and you see that I have put up my LinkedIn address, and I have put up my Twitter handle, as we would call it, and you are welcome to ask me to friend you and to contact me and to chat. But I'm wondering if you have any questions or comments.